Global Entrepreneurship Network's Assembly. We're very honored to have with us a prestigious set of artists for this session that will blow your mind, literally. To introduce the speakers, I want to introduce briefly the lead facilitator, Fernando Garibay from the Garibay Institute. Fernando is a polymath, producer, has worked with artists like Lady Gaga, Shakira, and others. So we're honored to have him here speak to how celebrity entrepreneurs can impact ecosystems in economies. Welcome, Fernando.
Thank you, Christina. Testing. Okay, great. Woo! Hi, everybody. How's everyone doing? Well, thank you for having us. We're honored to be here as part of the Global Entrepreneurship Network and essentially looking at the future of diplomacy, and who better as cultural diplomats than our guests here, our prestigious guests. And I want to help introduce everyone. So on my right is Daniel Bedingfield, pop star, and now entrepreneur as well. Maybe share a little bit about your history and how you got to this point today.
Okay. I don't know. That's how I got here. I'm a Kiwi. Came to London when I was a kid. Got adopted by a bunch of Jamaicans. Had a #1 hit when I was 18. On the first software ever for creating music on a PC. It's the first hit ever made in a bedroom with a PC. And then my little sister had another #1 hit 2 years later, Natasha Bedingfield. You know, like, these words are my own, I love you, or feel the rain on your skin. Okay. Then very frustrated by the music industry's boring messiness. I'm much happier in the tech world and getting shit done.
Daniel, you can't stop there. You gotta sing a couple bars of your famous songs.
Do you know that one? I gotta get through this. And then is it I don't wanna run away. Okay. I don't wanna run away. It's in the morning, but I can't take it. I don't understand. No. Have any way that I can stay in your arms. Anyway, no.
I can't tell you. So Daniel and I have been friends for quite a while, and I'm very privileged because myself I could spend extraordinary amount of time with people like Daniel and people like Ron and people like Sam, and they're very unique. They're almost like multidisciplinary aliens that were brought to our planet to help us understand each other. And so my background is almost it's aligned with that mindset. I started as a pop producer, developing pop stars, and essentially from everything from making and collaborating, writing songs, to making the music, to designing the strategy for an artist, to helping artists find themselves, and then helping these artists to evolve their identity that's natural to them, alongside shifting the perception of these artists with the public. Some of the artists that you may know: Lady Gaga, Whitney Houston, Michael Jackson, U2. These are some of the artists that I worked with and had a hand in developing. And the most important part of this work for me, and so I've been doing this since I was professionally 13, 14 years old, and what I realized throughout this whole cycle is it's not that these artists were contributing to the world and helping us find ourselves within the music, within their art, but they were also showing how we're all interconnected. And touring with these artists like Lady Gaga, I was able to spend time with world leaders, ministers, prime ministers, presidents, heads of state, traditional heads of state, formal and informal, startup founders, tech leaders, Steve Jobs. And what I realized is we're not that different from each other. And music brought us together. And now we built an institute together alongside this panel here called the Garibay Institute, in which we leverage academic diplomacy, cultural diplomacy, and now entrepreneurial diplomacy alongside Jen. So we'll talk about how all this relates to each other, because who would ever think that pop stars, academia, and entrepreneurship have something in common? And it turns out it has a lot in common. So my next introduction is with Ron. I'll share. Ron Ogunno is another anomaly. Ron Ogunno is the global envoy for the Tabernacle Choir, the largest choir in the world. And not just that, he's also a very successful entrepreneur, one of the most successful entrepreneurs out of Utah. But I'll let Ronald share a bit more about his work, and now the president of the Garibay Institute. Ronald Ogunno.
Thank you, Fernando. Such an honor to be here with all of you today. Like Fernando mentioned, I've been with the Tabernacle Choir as a volunteer for 30 years. 25 years ago, I was called to be the executive producer for Global Talent. The church had just completed building an incredible 21,000 seat venue called the Conference Center in Salt Lake. And so they were wanting me to bring guest artists from around the world, which I've been doing for the last 25 years, like I mentioned. So through meeting Fernando a year or so ago, we discovered that our missions were so much alike. And I think kind of a divine intervention, if you will, in our meeting each other. But I just wanted to read the mission statement for the choir, even though, again, as a volunteer, I've enjoyed my association with the choir. Hold on here. The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square performs music that inspires people throughout the world to draw closer to the divine and feel God's love for his children. And so I think as I got to know Fernando and got involved with the Institute, we felt a real synergy to collaborate. And so joining the Institute this last year, our mission now has become more focused. We're now helping the Tabernacle Choir in its global mission. We just returned in February from Peru, and we'll show a short clip on that. Before that, we were in Manila, Philippines, and before that, Mexico City. We're headed to Sao Paulo, Brazil in February, and then beyond that, Middle East and many other countries. So an honor to be here. Thank you, Fernando.
Thank you, Ronald. And we'll share a little bit of, when we say the word impact, I have a bit of an allergy to the word. It's been devalued in my opinion. The work that we're doing now, I'm biased to it because of I can see its real effect on bridging countries. So currently the Garibay Institute is focusing on conflict states, places in the world in which U.S. policy is not completely aligned, but looking to be aligned. So we'll discuss that a little bit further. Sam is another extraordinary artist who is the first of her kind. She is the world-renowned first virtual artist, and she's headlines every conference in the world right now. And so, Sam, thank you for joining us, and please share a bit about your work and your history, how you got started.
Thank you, Fernando. I'm very honored to be here. This is definitely a full circle moment. Hi, everybody. I'm Samantha Tauber. I'm Australian. I live in London. I grew up loving Lady Gaga and Michael Jackson. So it goes to show you that if you follow your dreams and you work hard and you believe in yourself, you never know who you're going to meet in the future. So to share who I am and what I do, in 2018, I created my artist name. It's called Vinci, spelt VNCCII. It was inspired by Leonardo da Vinci, the polymath, because the way I approach creativity is very multidisciplinary. So in 2018, I created an avatar character, which is what Fernando was referring to about virtual artists. And Vinci is a fictional AI superheroine from the intergalactic future. I love superheroes. I love badass front women, and anything that can be inspiring for a physical stage persona on stage that I perform. But I did it all first digitally, so I used motion capture and animation to tell stories and to help inspire people to step into their own power. And this is where it all relates in terms of we're all oneness and uplifting the collective consciousness together of humanity. That's the power of creativity, music, and storytelling. So I'm also a self-taught music producer, singer-songwriter, and my work's taken me around the world. And I'm now also collaborating with Interstellar Foundation, which is a non-profit about sending communication messages to space to share humanity's story. So there's a synergy with what I do with work in space. I also wrote a novel, a science fiction story where my character Vinci is the protagonist of an entire universe, and the novel's going to the moon at the end of the year as part of NASA's Astrobotics Griffin Lander mission, and the way the story will be preserved is nanofiche, which is a space-age archival analog storage material, super nano microscopic. So they're like 500 pages in my novel, but it's meant to last millions of years. And I think that's really profound, like to think about being an artist and a creative in this day and age, in the age of AI and the proliferation of AI, and what it means to be human and how to share our human story and for that to be preserved for future generations.
Thank you, Sam. This is quite incredible to have everyone here. So since this is a workshop, this is an audience participation event. So everyone is here as part of this panel now. Can we get a floating mic? Thank you. Okay, great. So I'll give you a brief history on soft power. Soft power is, well, I'll take a survey first. How many are C-suite here? Raise your hands. Great. How many in the world of policy, ambassadorship, consul generals, ambassadors here? Okay. How many are in the social advocacy world? Okay. And the rest, entrepreneurial ventures? Great. Perfect. Now, I'm going to ask your help to empower this group to activate its what's called interbrain synchronicity. And this is a phenomenon which now has recently been studied in the neuroscience world, in which we can collectively engage our brains to sync together. And it's driven by the power of empathy. So we are mirroring creatures. We essentially mirror each other. So we're going to do this now. And just bear with me, humor me. And I'll prove how this works. I'll show you in real time. I'm going to ask a question. And who would like to just randomly just raise your hand if you feel comfortable sharing? You don't have to answer this question, but if you do, it helps us connect and sync up. Anybody want to volunteer for a question? Okay, oh, perfect. Are you? Okay, great. All right. Sebastian, where are you from?
Whiting, Indiana.
Okay, what do you do? Oh, locally. You're local here. Okay, what do you do?
I'm a college student right now. I am a business admin major.
Okay. What inspired you to come here?
Actually, I have an internship, and my boss has invited me to come with me, and I was like, yes, of course, it was free.
Okay, Sebastian. How many years have you been studying at your
This is
university?
my first year studying.
Okay. All right. Sebastian, when you were 7 years old, there was a song that played, and this song changed the way you saw the world. Can you tell us what that song is?
So I've always been into hip-hop and rap, and when I was 7 years old, I really liked Chief Keef because Chief Keef was around the area of Chicago, and so just seeing someone around my area just, talking about, not necessarily, not good things, but, it was a really catchy song, and I always loved hip-hop and music, and it's been a huge part of my life. I listen to music every day. It inspires me.
Okay, what is specifically about Chief Keef's message? Although so Chief Keef is a hip-hop artist that was advocating for his lifestyle, right? But what specifically about Chief Keef inspired you?
It just sent me to not a different direction, but just like evolving my taste in music because my cousins put me onto the music. They showed me the music, and they showed me all different artists, like including Kanye West, Drake, all those people, hip hop artists. And my dad also inspired me with the music as well.
Now, I'm gonna just guide you for the sake of time here, not lead you, just guide. You could have chosen any artist to listen to, but specifically him. What did you see in him that you wanted in your life?
Just the lifestyle, just like his rags to riches story and how he grew up from a very poor neighborhood, one of the worst neighborhoods in America, and now he's like living a lavish lifestyle, and now his upbringing, his uproar has now changed his life and his friends for the better. Okay, so most people would discount an artist like Chief Keef because he talks about violence, street entrepreneurialism, right? But yet, what most
of, let's say, learned society would look at and discount this artist as sending the wrong message. Here you have someone who is inspired by his message because he's overcoming the odds. Chief Keef was overcoming the odds in his unique way, and his narrative follows suit. So it's really interesting, right? That this makes an impact so much that here you have someone that is inspired by that. That is essentially what cultural diplomacy is. When we work with governments around the world and we look to help the country identify the narrative that is true to them and the world needs to learn, we look at everything, not just what the public might see as a positive message, but what the public can use and leverage to be inspired by the work the country is doing. So it comes from places that are not very obvious, but if you look at the signals, right, like cultural diplomacy impact, what this really means, this is one of those signals. And we'll articulate this as we uncover not only your meaning, but the meaning in culture and how that's shaped who you are. Anyone wants to answer another question? Okay, perfect. Okay, great. Mike, please. Thank you, Sebastian. Give him a hand, please. Okay, your name?
Marisol.
Marisol, where are you from and what do you do?
Topeka, Kansas, and I am in the funeral industry.
I'm actually quite familiar with this industry. Okay, so the funeral industry. Okay, so how did you get into this line of work?
It is a family business since 1916 and just continuing on the legacy of service and care.
So I'm going to pinpoint something. So I don't know anyone here, by the way, in this group, so it's not curated. Okay, something we can learn from, give us something that we can learn from your industry.
Service is at the heart of everything we do. When we meet people and families, it's probably one of the worst days of their lives, losing their loved one. So just showing up as a friend, someone that's approachable as well, is very important to us.
So you are in a bit of the hospice industry, in the sense that you are guiding not only the family, but its ecosystem, right, of loved ones,
yes,
into helping the passing of an individual. Now this so I'm gonna pick a question that maybe will help unlock not only for us but for yourself how you ended up here.
Great question.
Okay, so the question is, and I sense a bit about your personality, so I'm formatting the question to fit this. If you have one opportunity to have a meal, this will be your final meal in your life, you get to pick anyone that's living or deceased to have this meal with. Who is that one person you would like to have your last meal with?
Mother Teresa of Calcutta.
Immediately, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Why?
Throughout her work that she has done, she's a very humble person, and the work that she did for the poor. We bury people, we don't write in obituaries about what kind of car they drove, what clothes they wore. We hear about what they did in their life and how they loved. That's super important. So the teachings that she taught, love everyone. We bury everyone no matter what tax bracket they're in. Everyone gets buried the same, and we are just able to see all of the love that people had for them in their lives, their funeral. Unfortunately, funerals are where all of the family comes together. A lot of people get, their family pictures at funeral or funeral dinners because we don't spend enough time with our loved ones in life. So I think it's super important to just, cherish the memories you have with your loved ones and to treat everyone the same, because at the end of the day and when everyone times comes, you're either cremated or buried or, put into a tree. I think it's coming. It's a new up and coming thing. So
when
treat everyone with kindness.
I understand. When did you discover that this was the inflection point for what you do?
I think it's just comes down to how I live my life and the kind of service that I would want to receive as well. Just being a kind person for everyone and showing up and treating others that I would want to be treated like as well.
So very clearly, it's very rare. Most people don't have this direct understanding of their inflection point. You do, and it's very clear this is an exceptional group. Now, the cultural diplomacy Mother Teresa shared with the world is derivative of love, right? So her message was love. Love everybody, regardless of where you come from, regardless of the background, regardless of the circumstances, you deserve to be loved. So back to this essence of why we're here. Cultural diplomacy is the center of all things connection, right? Now, if we break this down, let's just borrow where soft power comes from. Thank you. That's very, we should give a hand, please. The term soft power comes from Joseph Nye, military general, Harvard professor, just passed away recently, unfortunately. But his message was very extraordinarily profound, which is soft power is the ability to influence without coercion, simply put. He then defined the antithesis to soft power, which is military power, which is called hard power. And then he later defined that the world needs all these things. And so the combination of these two is smart power. Smart power is what most countries leverage now. But smart power is not just an embodiment of diplomacy in expression of academia, culture, entrepreneurship, and formal diplomacy policy expression. It's actually baked into everything we do. From C-suite leadership to raising funding to education to how global entrepreneurship and connection essentially works. Now, why are these artists here? So Daniel Bedingfield has shown the world what it's like to pioneer a new genre. So genre is creating a movement based on a new body of work, something that has never existed prior to that movement. The genre is garage music in the UK. Daniel, would you share a bit about how this happened, and can you identify the key markers to these points that, whoa, oh my God, now we have a movement?
So with any genre like punk music or drum and bass or garage or grime, in London there would be a group of musicians who get together. An old music like new wave is dying. There's a gap. We need new exciting music. So you get a whole bunch of people who already have some respect and a bunch of new kids, and they start pioneering a sound together, and then they start playing for each other. Then the DJs pick it up, then they play it in the clubs, and then everyone starts dancing to it, and then we start trying to impress each other with this music, and we get that, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And someone told me that the DJs, when I was 16, they would take your CD and they would critique it for you, and if you made it good enough, then they would spin it. So that just created an upward draft, and then there was probably about 200,000 Londoners who were listening to this type of music, and we're all just trying to impress each other. And then usually what happens when it gets good enough, it explodes and then goes to a pop. So I was propelled into the charts by the rise of this garage movement we were all creating together. I would say about 200 producers working, giving their lives to it.
So you became the iconography for a movement based on your exceptional body of work in which everybody in the new generation of music makers were trying to embody.
Yeah. So the thing about soft power in both of your examples, for me, Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, Whitney Houston, I heard their sound and I thought, because they can, it's very American, because they can do that, I can also do that. And that's the other part of soft power, is that no one is a pop star, no one is a legend, but you must step into that place and hold space like a priest, hold space like a mother, for the hopes and dreams of the next generation. And if you fail, like the music in the last 20 years, which has been most of it so incredibly terrible, if you fail to set a high bar, then the youth look at you and they think, oh, I just want to sing rubbish music and just cars and bling. But unlike your hero, you looked at him and maybe got some inspiration from, I can do that too, and that's really key. So if you have soft power for a country or a scene, you give them hope.
So that's so interesting, hope. Imagine if you were an entrepreneur and your product was influence. And here you have Whitney Houston, Lady Gaga, U2, just three examples. Taylor Swift, another great one. And they came out of a specific country. Let's just pretend they came out of, I don't know, another country we worked with, Guatemala. right? Let's say these artists came out of there, and the government and the country had nothing, no association with these artists. In other words, there was no framework to capture this extraordinarily breadth and depth of influence. Imagine what opportunity cost Guatemala would suffer if this actually played out. Imagine the no economic collaboration derivatives that this could inspire in Guatemala. Imagine the conferences that would have happened if that happened in Guatemala, right? So that's actually what is essentially happening in the US. So these artists because of their success, broadcasted the story of the US to the world. See, this music exported. For the UK, you pioneered a genre, yet interesting enough, there was no governmental body or ambassador or any policy leader who came to you and had said, hey, can we work together? You love your country. Why can't we advocate for peace, love?
And New Zealand has also not asked me to do
Absolutely.
this, but we could have made a lot together.
Exactly. So we see this as a huge opportunity, huge, massive, the Garibay Institute, to figure out what frameworks can we create together alongside policy administration, alongside government, alongside the public, to work together to create new opportunities for your country by showcasing the extraordinary artists, culture of a country. So that's, I think, an opportunity that's been missed, but we're here to recapture. Thank you, Daniel. Now, Ronald Gunno, you lead the Tabernacle Choir for the Church of Jesus Christ. The Tabernacle Choir is the largest choir in the world, and correct me if I'm wrong, but countries are in line to receive the choir. Everyone's a volunteer at the choir, and typical audience member is Prime Minister, President, notable figures of a country. Walk us through how this happened, how the Tabernacle Choir became a phenomenon, how your influence now brought in A-listers to perform alongside the Tabernacle Choir, and what happens to a country once you visit it.
Thank you, Fernando. Let me just start by saying that I, too, am an entrepreneur. How many were alive before the internet? A few of us. All right, well, I started a company called Health Benefits America in 1986. And my partner and I, on the trunk of our car, we built the nation's largest benefits outsourcing company. And our clients were all within the Fortune 50 group. So we had, by the time we sold the business, over 10 million employees we were doing benefits for, and over 10 million retirees and actives. So I've generated this entrepreneurial spirit many, many years ago. And so when this incredible venue for the Tabernacle Choir was built in Salt Lake City, and I was asked to bring international artists to the choir, I had this entrepreneurial background already instilled in me. Now, I didn't have the internet when I started the business. We sold the business in 1996 just as the internet was coming around. And we jumped through a window, thank goodness, just in time, because when the internet hit and all that started happening, our need disappeared. Because now companies and corporations could do everything via the internet. So I took my resources from that sale of that company and started doing volunteer work. The first thing I did was I auditioned to get in this in Tabernacle Choir, which was a very difficult process for me. A miracle, frankly, that I got in. But 4 years into singing in the choir, when that conference center was built, I was called and asked to be the executive producer for Global Talent. Now, I had no background in entertainment, and so I started from scratch. And the first guest artist I reached out to was Gladys Knight. And she, of course, accepted and came and sang with us in our first concert in December of 2000. Well, since then, we've had over 40 national, international artists, from Andrea Bocelli to Stevie Wonder to James Taylor. We've had them all. And it's been a really incredible experience for me to engage these artists, to bring them and to host them and to become their friends. And the trick to this business has been reaching to their hearts and getting them from a closed box into an arena of love through music. And this is where I discovered the power of soft diplomacy. And so when I met Fernando and I told him about our mission and my ability to take the choir around the world and build this soft diplomacy, it was a natural fit. Now, it's also a natural for the church's mission, because through diplomacy, through music, it bridges everything. It bridges politics. It bridges religion. We're in the process now of going to the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates. We're also looking at India and China. Now, these are non-Christian countries. And so how does the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Tabernacle Choir, bridge these relationships and friendships in these countries? Well, we do it through music. We do it through love. And so it's been my honor, and I continue to do so, working around the world in this way. So for now, to your question, I think music has been the key for the Tabernacle Choir, and the ability to provide an international, non-denominational program that every person listening to music can be inspired and lifted up by.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Ron. What's so interesting about the machinery of the Tabernacle Choir, can you walk us through the logistics aspect? Because I think it's worth understanding, and it's a case study, the economics of this.
Yeah.
Who pays for this? How does this happen, and why?
Well, I have to be really honest and transparent. When I got in the choir and I was asked to take on this assignment, a couple of years earlier, the choir was completely self-funded by their own sale of DVDs and CDs. So the church did not pay one penny towards the choir. If the choir went on tour, if the choir went anywhere, they funded it themselves. But as you all know, in the last few years, particularly the last 3 years, CD sales, DVD sales, that's just all gone out the window. So there's been no way for the choir to fund themselves. Now, when you think of 400 singers, 150 in the orchestra, and we also have 80 in the bells, these are all volunteers. They all have their day jobs. And so it's amazing to me that these people give of their time and their talents towards this mission of music. And so, but having said that, because they're now we're not able to generate money through the sale of their own products, luckily the church said, we will now come in and step up and fund the choir. Why? Because the choir is the church's diamond. It's a jewel. And so they now fund the entire operation for the choir, which first allowed us to go to Mexico City. When we went to Mexico City, they chartered 2 Delta 77 jets. They flew all of us, 600 of us, including our crews. We sent 18 semi-trucks down to Mexico City for all the choir equipment, the sound, the LED screens. I mean, it's just an incredible project. And then you've got the hotels, you've got buses, you have everything you have to do to transport this group. And so Mexico was our first experiment. It was very successful. And then we went on to Manila in the Philippines, then on to Peru this last February. We're going to Argentina in August and Sao Paulo in February. But you can imagine the logistics of moving almost 700 people and our crews, our technical staffs. I mean, it's an amazing feat.
What? So all volunteers, no one gets paid on the choir, yet it's harder to get into the choir than Harvard Business School.
It's an extremely difficult audition process.
You were a singer as well.
I sang in the choir for 16 years as a baritone. I had to drop out. I got David Archuleta as our guest artist in 2010, and he was a handful in a good way. But I couldn't sing and get all the rehearsals and take care of our artists, so I dropped out of the loft at that time. But it's a logistical nightmare.
And you don't sell tickets in a concert. It's free for the public?
Concerts are all free. Everything's free. So we're not having to go out and promote. We're not having to get funding. We don't have to get sponsors. This is the incredible beauty of having a sponsor as in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so it's a gift to the public. So when we performed in Peru and Lima at the National Stadium, that was a completely free event. And we had we call it sold out, and every seat was gone. And it was a great, incredible experience. We'll show you a clip on that.
Yes, we're going to actually show a clip of this. What I want this audience to understand and process is this modality is not limited to just policy alone. It's actually part of, I believe, can be part of every organization, entrepreneurially, again, academically, etc., is how to influence, again, without coercion, but we say through love, but through compassion. And by creating and leveraging projects like this, you can change the relationship between your customer, your advocacy group, in meaningful ways that are beyond what's considered typically authentic here, right? So these are truly at the core of our soul, spirit, and mind, this level of connection. So we're going to show you what happens, and this is just a litmus, a sentiment analysis from the concert in Peru. So we'll show you a 3-minute video here. We cue up the video here. Sound.
To Peru. Hello, hello.
We're so grateful to be here in this hot weather. But it's wonderful. Such a gift.
Person. And today's that day. Today's the day where we get to share the music of the choir with the saints here in Peru, and we are so excited to be here, right?
Yes, so excited. We love Peru.
We feel so blessed and so grateful to be here in Peru with you.
Las gentes de Peru are muy maravilloso. Beautiful country. Viva Perú siempre.
Aprender mucho y llenar todo mi espíritu con el coro de tabernáculo.
Lo más importante es esperar el coro para poder sentir el espíritu.
Un concierto a nivel celestial, definitivamente hermoso. Tiene show espiritual, como también el show de canciones populares.
We are absolutely thrilled to be here in Lima, Peru, in this magnificent stadium. The audiences are in for a moving experience here in Lima, Peru.
Que va a ser un día histórico aquí en el Perú. Esperamos más de 35.000 personas y toda la producción ha trabajado durante más de 10 días para llegar a esta tarde tan importante.
Estamos listos.
Muy feliz, sí, me ve que estuve llorando porque la emoción, el espíritu que se sintió, la energía que cada uno puso en esto es maravilloso.
Es increíble lo que estoy sintiendo, hay tantos sentimientos, alegría, emoción, quiero llorar.
Hermoso, unas voces maravillosas, en realidad un espectáculo mágico, hermoso, fantástico, mágico.
Solamente siento que la voz es algo muy valioso que tenemos. No solo por la música, sino por lo que podemos expresar.
It was incredible. It's hard to put in words. I was crying.
I'm emotional. Thanks.
Muy emocionada y muy feliz.
Fue la mejor experiencia de los últimos años de mi vida.
That right there is the testament of what happens when music connects at this scale. It's power to change lives, and at an incredible level of impact. Thank you, Ronald. There's more to talk about this and what we can learn and the lessons from here on how to connect our countries together. Sam.
Hi.
You've pioneered something that never existed as well, which was a virtual artist, performer. You saw something in the future that is now being expressed in Korea, China, these the next generation of artists, virtual. How did you get here?
Thank you. Well, first of all, virtual artists have been around for a long time, but I think what was unique about what I was doing was I created a character that was my avatar, which was an extension of my own consciousness. So I went down this whole work of, well, the word avatar comes from the ancient Sanskrit word avatara, which is descent. So to understand yourself, that involves the inner work. And so I found out that I'm a warrior spirit at heart, and that's how I wanted to communicate that digitally, but also physically. And so what I did is it started digitally through animation and motion capture, but I was interested in this idea of interoperability, which when the term metaverse was communicated in the popular zeitgeist, people were starting to question more their identity digitally. And what does that mean in terms of ownership? And I suppose that's where the Web3 economy comes into the picture. We saw NFTs, non-fungible tokens, taking off, and artists demanding to have more sovereignty over their own work and to have ownership. And so that's the inception of why I also created Vinci, because she is my being, but digitally, and also can be transferable across all forms of mediums. And the idea is, I'm really interested in world building and designing the future, like you said, like seeing something in the future. And I think, as we saw with music and storytelling, that is like our soft power. If we can be a bridge to the future, a bit Star Trek-esque, but we can use our imagination to influence reality. So I had no idea when I started this project that it would go to the moon with the book, and it would evolve as I evolved as a human being, as Samantha Tauber, and also technologically with integrating different pipelines, including AI, into my creative process. But I'm really interested in the impact component. Like, why do I do this? The idea is to help inspire others to self-realize, to work out, who are you? What is your avatar? Like, what do you represent? And how do you want to communicate that, not only in the physical material world, but also digitally and I suppose etherically, and how you can use storytelling to be a bridge. And I was also interested in the metaverse because of the world building component, the idea of having real-time virtual worlds, like real-time virtual cities, and the idea is having digital twins, but it doesn't have to be a one-to-one simulation of reality. Or could we project forward and think about what sort of future we want to live in terms of technology, in terms of energy, in terms of humanity, in terms of architecture and design. So like all of these components are so multidisciplinary and they come together, but that's why I love, that's why I also wrote the book, because it's set in the future and my character visits another society on another planet. It's all fictional, but it's a great speculative idea because you can start to prototype what a community of tomorrow could look like. And the way I see it is that we are one human family on spaceship Earth. And like, that's what my goal of the project. It took me a while to get here to work out the true why and the impact, but it kind of culminated last year when I met this gentleman called Frank White, who wrote this book called The Overview Effect, which came out in the 1980s. So Frank White interviewed all these astronauts, and he noticed a very profound psychological phenomenon where they'd go to space and a lot of them would come back and they'd be completely transformed and changed because they would see how beautiful our Earth is, how fragile it is, how, like the beauty of this cosmic jewel in this vast, deep, black ocean of nothingness potentially. So it makes us really appreciate what we have, our whole lives, everything we know, all our emotions, our connections are all here on this planet. And like, you don't have to go to space to have that realization. And that was also what Frank White was talking about with the overview effect. You can experience that from within. And so, spoiler alert, but that is kind of the message of the novel that I wrote, and Frank wrote the foreword for it. And if you told me years ago that it would end up going to the moon, it would have been too far-fetched for me, but it goes to show you the power of the imagination and to believe in yourself and also believe in the future that you want to create. Our minds have so much power. We are what we think. And I think it is a community, it is a global venture together, but it all starts with the individual, like each and every one of you doing the inner work. And that I didn't know it at the time, but now I do. That was the whole purpose of why I created the avatar of Vinci.
Sam, you are, I could safely say, the first major stage, global leadership stage pop star. You present to world leaders and you showcase your work. And what's interesting about it is, it's not just a correlate that the creatives, authors, artists have identified a future in which we're living in now, right? So we can look back to literature and showcasing how much Elon was inspired by all these novels, and the tech world is inspired by Star Trek. All these things kind of repeat themselves, and the work you're doing now, I can see, is already inspiring what's happening in South Korea now and China with avatars. So it's quite extraordinary to be here at this moment in time. And we're going to get to AI as well and how this it's incorporated into what we do. Now, I'm going to reset the audience one more time. Who's willing to volunteer for a question? Okay, perfect. Okay, Mike, please. Thank you. Hi, your name and what do you do?
Sandy Hewlett. I'm the CEO and founder of a tech startup in Southern California. We've just released our Life Backup Plan app, which is a medical health and safety app, which actually saves a whole bunch of money in medical issues.
Oh, okay. And when did you start this?
About 2.5 years ago.
What brought you here?
Well, I'm actually a native of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I had some business I had to attend to in Chicago. And so I said, I could go to this conference, and I could go to Chicago, and I could see all my family and friends, and I could then go to this conference, and I could write the whole thing off as a tax, off of my tax return.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I see the benefits, of course. Now, okay. So I'm gonna ask if this is a magic cell phone, and this cell phone will allow you to call your father at the age of 7 or 8. Knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give your father if you were able to go back in time to the age when you were 7 or 8?
When I was 7 or 8, or when he was 7 or 8?
When you were 7 or 8.
Nothing, honestly. I had an amazing dad.
In your career and what you do now, how much did your father influence what you do?
Everything.
Exactly. So it turns out that you're here to maybe not just for the tax benefits, but to honor his presence through your work, isn't it? Yeah. I'm good at what I do because of this very reason. People like you who are honest with themselves and can trace their history to what they do through love. Thank you for sharing that. Can you give her a hand? That right there is what happens when you ask questions, when you connect at a human level. And maybe art, for those of us who haven't quite done that work yet, can leverage that to help us connect with ourselves and thereby each other. If we don't know ourselves, we don't know each other. And that seems to be the problem also in diplomacy and policy is countries and identity of countries very much work like individuals. So microsocial specifically, if we can't understand ourselves, how are we supposed to understand each other? Especially when lines are drawn in which geopolitical divisions are set, right? It's very complicated to try to connect without doing this type of work. Now, I would make the argument that art does fast track this process. It does fast track these deeper connections, right? So thank you for sharing that, and I'm really honored by your answer. We're going to honor that to continue this. Now, we have a new player in this world of diplomacy and connection, but it's also a more of a pipeline that's affecting all our work in a great way. I wanted this panel is at the forefront of using AI in the creative endeavors. Now, what's interesting about AI and the creative endeavors is it's a bit of the last frontier, as this famous singularity point of when is the human consciousness been truly understood to be able to leverage that, what makes us human, in the world of synthetic intelligence. So I personally teach a course on synthetic and organic creativity, designed this course at the engineering school of Stanford. And its whole premise is to show the value of the human spirit, the human consciousness, and what it means to be human, to give us a bit of an additional lens to understanding what is synthetic. I'm going to get into distilling that through the conversations with these four extraordinary people. Daniel Bedingfield, you have been one of the first to leverage AI songwriting, Suno, and using these platforms. Walk us through what you... I remember when we first started talking about Suno, which is a music making platform. Now, music, as we talked about before, it takes a lot of introspective work, daily, exploring your traumas, daily exploring the human spirit. Then somehow consciously you leverage this connection to humanity and you create something you think people will relate to. And art as a whole has been the embodiment of the human spirit at the highest level, in my opinion. So here we have AI, a platform like Suno or Urio, who can do this at a prompt, right? Create a song at a prompt. Walk us through the realities of that and what this really means.
Okay, I hate sitting down, by the way. Thank you, God. Okay, so at the moment, you got a bit of a bright idea that you might be a musician at like 6 or 9, and then you have to learn the piano, and it takes you 20 years, and you sound so bad for so long, and maybe your parents don't have the money to get you a good guitar, so you sound, it's kind of crap. And then you work your way up, and you have to deal with toxic musicians, managers, parasitic people. If you don't look good enough, you're like, I can't be a musician. If you have social anxiety, you have to conquer that. You conquer your social anxiety, you stand in front of a crowd, they rip you to bits, and everyone is really horrible in the music industry. So you're just getting ground down. Now, the prevailing myth of our culture is that this is good for you, that it develops character in you. I don't believe this. I don't think that learning piano for 20 years is necessary. I think that you have the best ideas when you're 6 years old, when you're 9 years old. I certainly did. My voice hasn't gotten any better since I was 9 years old. I've learned how to perform, but I knew how to perform right at the beginning. Kids know how to perform. They're like, wah! Right? So what we have right now, I could go, and then the beat carries on. The AI would make it. I want it a little more like that J-Lo song. How you gonna feel about this? No, that's Destiny Child, more Destiny Child. There you go. And I want that, like Bob Marley. No, yeah, a little bit more Bob. Question. Okay, and then I go like, I want strings, but I want Beethoven strings. And so the AI is listening to me, it's adding it in, and I'm like, no, I'll mix that like Quincy Jones. Oh yeah, I want. All right, so now you go. Right? So now I've just done this. How long did that take me? 30 seconds? Because I was talking. And now I'm singing on top of it, and you're all listening, and I didn't have to learn anything, and I'm 6 years old. And I think that's the future that we're moving towards, is that technology can free us from the slavery of needing to master too many things. Ableton, best software producing software out there, really intuitive. Bloody hell, it takes years and years to mix. Okay, I don't need to mix anymore. AI is going to mix it for me. No, I want it to be mixed like Lady Gaga. No, I want a little bit more London Street on it. I sing in a microphone that isn't brilliant. I'm singing here at a conference, and I come the greatest idea. Okay, but then I didn't like that note, and AI can just fix that, and it can mix it and make it sound like it's recording in your studio, one of the most beautiful studios in the world. Gets rid of all this useless stuff that we used to tell ourselves is developing character. It doesn't have to. Some of these bedroom musicians never leave their bedroom. There's a good Flintstone thing where there's this amazing singer in her shower. This big record company guy signs her, and then she's going to sing in front of millions, and she can't. So he brings the shower, and then she stands in the shower, and she can sing again. Music does not. You do not have to be Rihanna. Have the body and the moves. You don't have to be Dua Lipa to be a star. You need the thing that works for you. And AI will allow a quite okay guitarist with a quite okay voice to have the world's biggest orchestra with the best musicians of all time playing behind him, doing whole stadiums and just loving it. And so this could make music beyond the worst music you've ever heard. It could replace musicians, but it's down to us. We have to lead AI where we want it to take us as humanity. And a big question for you, if you hear the best music you've ever heard in your life, do you really care where it came from? So you had the drums in church, that was evil. You had the piano was evil in church. You had the organ was evil in church. Then you had the guitar was evil in church. Then you had the distortion was evil in church. And then you had electronic music was evil in church, and now we're saying that AI is evil in church, and it doesn't have to be. I use the church as an example of an oppressive, negative force crapping on all the best things. AI can be the frontier. Every good music came from a new technology. AI can be the frontier of the best music we've ever heard in our lives.
So that's an interesting point, Daniel.
Thank you for letting me stand up.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because in one sense, you've mastered using AI towards your highest creative spirit, with one caveat though. If you're a master at this, you understand what you're craving to hear, and this is based on limbic conscious information, but you've done the work and you're also born with a gift.
Would have known that at 9 years old though.
Yeah, of course. It's really rare. Now, so the average, let's say, person is going to attempt this, and it's going to prompt their way through this. Now, here's the problem. To get the results that are not generic, you must understand what you truly want.
That's it.
And that's the secret to prompting in AI where we're at now. It's the most overlooked aspect of prompting. If you cannot uncover what's in your unconscious, this Jungian shadow side, it'd be very difficult to prompt to get the results that you want. Now, Suno and these music platforms as an example, as a proxy to LLMs, for example, as well, will not give you, can't read your mind. So you have to be very articulate to these things. So what's the difference with Daniel using AI is that he's very conscious of what is unconscious and what his needs are and can put it together. And that's the challenge.
But I would posit that the world is full of 9-year-olds who can do that. But the difficulty to get there has been so extreme. The bottleneck has almost crushed all of us. But the world is full of child geniuses who know exactly what they want. This could allow them to then uncover that hidden Stevie Wonder.
So AI and self-diplomacy is exactly what Daniel said, is can we leverage our academic institutions, Stanford, Harvard, MIT, Thunderbird, in which I lecture at, et cetera, can we bridge knowledge over and help uplift communities to leverage AI and teach the basic fundamental aspects of how to onboard quickly with the support of policy to scale growth? And so that's another topic, but we're looking at that now.
And what else are we going to do? We're not going to be working.
to help each other. That's what we're going to be doing. So thank you, Daniel. Ron, we've been using AI and to leverage connections and bring engagement. This is your work with the Tabernacle Choir is another great example of an organization who has no interest in evangelizing, but yet it's just preaching love. How do you see AI being a part of your future with Tabernacle Choir and diplomacy?
That's a good question. I think for the choir, their main concern, of course, would be branding. You know, there's not another choir like it in the world. You can't AI a choir into an arena. You've got 400 individual singers that have auditioned and have met the rigors of that choir. And not to mention that, of course, the orchestra. So the branding issue for the choir, we've had many people say, hey, can you just bring half the choir? Or can you bring 12 singers representing the choir? And we just don't do that. We will not jeopardize the brand, which is its size. I mean, and its ability to create an enormous sound with that size live. And so we do use AI in our recording of albums, in our video work. I mean, we have a lot of ways to use AI. We actually even use AI in the vetting of artists. Okay, so we want to make sure that we're bringing talent that doesn't have any checkered backgrounds that might be a problem for us. So it has its place for us, but again, we're always looking at the value of the brand.
Thank you, Ron. What have you noticed now, going country to country? What is the first thing a global leader or world leader comes and says about your work with the Tabernacle Choir and beyond, your interest with being there in their country?
Well, I think the beauty of what we're doing is we're bringing national treasures to sing with us from their own country. For example, we're going to Argentina. We have an 88-year-old superstar in Argentina that is going to sing with the choir at a VIP event at the Placido concert hall, I guess you'd call it. And he happens to be the best friend of the president of Argentina. Okay, so knowing that, we know the president of the country will be at that event. And so, again, by using national treasures for the countries we're going to, it really draws us in an intimate way with their government leaders.
And I've seen this firsthand, so I'm very biased, but I can safely lead Ron into sharing some of this more discreet work. What essentially happens is new friendships are formed, new bonds are formed with these heads of state, and based really around music and the love for music. And the fact that you go into a country and highlight the national treasures, what does this do for not only their perception of their own country, but what do you think it does for other countries seeing this work?
Well, the beauty of it is we start with the consul generals. You know, we don't, and this was kind of an exception with Raúl Lavi in Argentina, but we start with consul generals in every country we're going to, and we make it their idea. We ask them to help us find the national treasures. And so the consul generals will go to the ambassadors, and the ambassadors love to get involved, and we give them all the credit, so that if we have a head of state, a president or prime minister, the consul generals, the ambassadors kind of get some of the credit for the work that we're bringing. So we like to start there and involve the government officials that we're working with at a lower level.
The externalities are extraordinary because what happens, and I've seen this with this work, is they also ask you, what else can we do together?
Yeah. The other, as a matter of fact, we had one country ask if we'd come once a year, right? So, I mean, it's very contagious to have a...
Absolutely. Yeah. But it also allows to continue the missionary work, the extraordinary hand-to-hand collaborations with helping marginalized and disenfranchised communities around the world.
Yeah, for example, in Mexico City, the church donated 15 tons of food to Catholic charities. So we partnered with them to help feed the poor in Mexico. So we collaborate with other organizations to bring health and welfare to the country.
And it's so interesting. It's very clearly that stated immediately is that there's no proselytizing or evangelizing of any sort with these gifts to the country.
It's open to the entire general public. Matter of fact, the church last year gave out $1.4 billion in humanitarian aid around the world to anybody and anyone who needed it.
What I learned was really incredibly mind-blowing is not everybody wants aid. Not every country wants the support of a community that can immediately catalyze water, food, scarcity. Wheelchairs. It's extraordinary. Now, there are agendas that, again, these projects supersede. They are able to hover beyond policy. And this was extraordinary about soft power and public diplomacy. It allows us a framework to do this type of work so that we do not interfere with formal diplomacy. And that's the strength of cultural diplomacy as well.
I agree.
Ron, thank you so much. Sam, your work now with AI, walk us through what you see for the future and leveraging what you do now, and how would you predict your avatar and your artistry evolving?
Thank you. Big question. Really enjoyed hearing my fellow panelists and what they're saying about AI. The way I see AI is two fundamental forces that we could fall into as a human species, love or fear. And that's how we will approach it in terms of our mindset and how, or if we integrate it at all. So back in 2018, I wrote an opinion article about why I did Vinci, and it was actually inspired as well by the movie Tomorrowland from Disney. They had the main character Casey, and basically there was an anecdote where the teacher said, the world's going to end, dystopia, and then she puts up her hand, she goes, how can we fix it? And then there was kind of like a glitch in the matrix because she kind of was part of helping save the future. And the point of that message, I suppose, in the film is that she had a positive mindset, like an abundance mindset, not a scarcity mindset. Abundance I associate with love in the sense that there's room for everyone, humans and AI, if we can find a healthy symbiotic relationship with how to integrate with it without losing our own humanity. Whereas the fear-based mindset is there's not enough for everyone. It's scarcity. We must compete. We must tear each other down. And I just don't resonate with that. And so that's kind of like the foundational pillar for the why for Vinci. And at the beginning, it started with her being a fictional AI superheroine. But the more and more I developed the project, the more I realized that she's not artificial. She, in the story, she's driven by animistic forces, which is where we get the word animation from. So she's connected to, this is in my fictional storytelling, the organic source, which could be however you perceive nature, oneness, how we're all interconnected organically. So that's like the big kind of like meta to answer. But on a day-to-day level, I've always integrated AI, whether it's narrow AI in my music production with mixing and things like that. And I am enthusiastic about generative AI as a creative. That's been my story. I've leveraged the democratization of technology, like Ableton Live, to teach myself music production, motion capture for not being an animator. Now AI is doing all of that as well, so you don't even have to get in a fancy motion capture suit to tell stories. I started during the pandemic time. I was speaking as my Vinci character live, wearing this motion capture system, talking at conferences around the world with my iPhone capturing the blend shapes of my face to do facial animation. But now I've trained the Vinci character model, so she's interoperable, she's like an agent, she can communicate and talk in different languages around the world. But I think that's why I also love speaking in person, is because it verifies proof of humanity. Like, this isn't like made by some huge company, this avatar. This was me like doing this. And if the AI goes rogue, or there's interpretations on the internet, which is part of our reality of AI, the question, all of our search for truth and misinformation, going back to the original source, the creator, the human, and speaking to them face to face, one to one, you're going to have a better source there in terms of authenticity or proof of humanity than the AI agent on the internet. There's so many levels to this, but as a creative, I love what you were saying, Daniel, about like 6-year-olds are geniuses. Like I hope when I grow up, I continue to think like a 6-year-old. That's my goal in life. And I think there's a difference between childish and childlike. Childlike curiosity is so powerful, and society tries to stamp that out of us through educational systems. They go, this is how you learn, this is how you should think, there's only one way. But the great thing about potentially AI is it can cater to all of our different forms of intelligence, to our neurodiversities, to our ways of learning. Like, are you a kinesthetic learner, or are you an auditory learner? And the AI can also cater to your zone of proximal development. So it's like your own personal assistant in a way. And you can be really playful with that. I think the key is sovereignty over self, humanity, and over your own data. And AI will never be you. It will never be human. It will mirror you. But the beautiful thing about us as humans is we're not fixed. We are forever evolving. We're dynamic. So the challenge for AI will be to evolve with us and not tell us how to be.
That's really well said, really articulate. I am always wary of the word never, because I believe that AI is growing. AGI, essentially, the goal, immediate goal, is growing so exponentially. that I believe humanity will have a challenge, and that challenge will bring out the best in humanity. That's my hope. Because as we see now, right, we experiment with Suno and these audio songwriting generating platforms. And again, it's a good proxy because we get to see how much it's mirroring our previous compositions, right? It's trained on our previous compositions. And how it's thinking about what changes it believes we want in the music. And what have you noticed about the singularity point of where it can really interpret our back to the story the audiences shared about their intimate experiences in life that shaped them. How much of this is lacking in our current models, and what do you predict is going to happen with this capture of this intimate data to then synthesize into generating content that is super genuine?
So one thing that AI could possibly do is give us that overview effect, take us out of the trap that we're in, the mind traps. The stories of your father, this lady's father, being inspiring. Whitney Houston, it takes us out. That your choir, who felt tears when this choir was singing? It takes you to some place above that you are, and I think AI can serve that if it starts creating a real-time feedback loop. In the moment, it's trained on all the old data. Historic. And if it started to become training on our conversations and all fed into a model, it might start creating a feedback loop where it starts evolving in real time with us as humanity, almost as if it's reading all of our thoughts and feelings at the same time and learning how to interact with us. And I think that's what is going to have to come next in order for it to be not static. And if this over human kind of cerebral cortex, because we don't really behave very well en masse. Bees behave wonderfully en masse, but we behave destructively en masse, and it might be able to coordinate us, kind of like if you're linked into the spirit world and you're being led by a god figure. There may be some help, like a parental help that AI starts to develop with us, if we can build it right, and that we are responsible for building it the way that we want it to be.
As with everything on this Newtonian, not quantum, but the Newtonian aspect of what we're talking about, essentially the interoperability, interconnectivity of where AI, it's all converging. We know the data is being sourced from the same data, and we know that OpenAI has reached a point of where they've trained and combed the internet, and so is Microsoft. Deep data, and so now they're training on synthetic data, which is a regenerative aspect of data that's making up based on the data that's been trained on. So essentially, we're seeing that convergence now. But what you're talking about is what you see as a convergence in which all this will coalesce to create a parallel reality to what our life is like now. And hopefully you're optimistic that this hive mindset will systemically course correct our natural tendencies.
It may even have a way to access our understanding of God and to be able to flow with that through us.
So you're seeing it as a tool to understand the human condition more deeply, because it's extraordinary right now. We see it in pattern recognition. Maybe it can discover and uncover patterns that we can't see.
That's
and
right.
Our biases are limiting, right?
It's currently doing that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of my friends use ChatGPT as a therapist. They find it far more compassionate, far better advice, and available at all times for free.
When I do my academic work, it's always on the bleeding edge of knowledge, specifically with behavior economics, neuroeconomics, and human behavior as a whole. And this bleeding edge, it's already traced and learned all the recent case studies and distilled it in a way that can articulate it better than I can. And knowing this, I no longer have to spend hours researching this stuff. I can really get a quick summary and understand the fundamentals, so I can then build on top of those things, which allow me to really fast track my case study work, etc.
So we're looking at a switch now. Creativity, in the human creativity, my ability to know what I want becomes more powerful than years and years of study and skill. Skill is being lost as the key thing. But vision is becoming the most important thing. What do I do with this ridiculously powerful machine? What do I want it to do for me? What do I want it to do for us?
I'll give you a proxy to what you just said. So I am a product of 647 songs. Let me explain that. The average listener has listened to 1,500,000 songs on average. And that's on the low side throughout their lifetime. So if you have listened to 1,500,000 songs over your lifetime, how much of that do you think has shaped your preferences? Right? So if those were predominant in a certain part of the world, those 1,500,000 songs, it clearly shaped your tastes. Now that's called cultural inheritance. So as a creator, I've distilled that my version of 1.5 million songs to 647. I know because I'm constantly pulling from these songs for inspiration. I'm only reinventing the songs that touched me as a child, that inspired me, that shaped who I am. So I've done this work, so I know because I have a playlist. So that's very limiting. Now what I do is I leverage the whole catalog of the human archival of music. So I can make creative choices not based on my limited experience and exposure, but based on humanity's music. So what I do is I'll look at what I'm feeling at the moment, and I'm with a collaborator, an artist in the room, a pop star, and I ask the pop star, what are you going through at the moment? Because I guarantee what you're going through right now is going to connect with the rest of the world, because we're all human. The only difference in this framework of making pop music together is I now have the catalog and the education of the entire historically recorded music that I can pull from, which gives me more options to create. That's the reality that we're in now. And what happened for us as creatives is our tastes have gotten more refined, and we can spot AI music in seconds. The average person cannot spot AI music. It can be fooled very easily. Now the question,
at least for the next 6 months, we'll see what happens.
That's right. So we constantly. So what I see that's happening is I've been saying that for now 10 years. I've had exposure to AI and voice cloning for quite some time now, and I still find that my 6 months. I keep saying this, but I get better at what I do, and I don't think I'm unique in that way. And I think that we will co-evolve with the AI to refine what makes us human. Right? Look at the ancestral wisdom, right? Interconnection, intercommunication, sense extension. Prior to the modern civilization, we can hear further than 20 hertz, 20 kilohertz. Now, I'll stop my tangent there because it's worth noting that I believe we will co-evolve with AI, and this is where we're heading to now. But Ron, you sit at and with a choir that's changed my life. So I remember you've asked me, you need to come see the choir. And I've heard about the Tabernacle Choir for so long. And, my schedule is very challenging at the moment, as it will be and continue to be. So I said, okay, Ron, I will go and on Christmas and a couple of days before Christmas and go see the choir. What I learned that day was the choir that was singing were the voices I kept hearing as a child. I could not sleep. I had insomnia as a kid, and because I kept hearing voices of angels singing in my head, and I couldn't make them stop. So I decided to pick up an instrument. Hopefully that calmed that noise down. And it turned out that all these things were recaptured, and for the first time in my life, I discovered that it was this choir that I was hearing in my life. Now that was my existential experience with this choir. But this is not the first time someone's told the choir and you a story like this, which goes to show that there's something more happening, again, that AI still can't capture. There's no modality, there's no framework in artificial intelligence that can capture this essence of consciousness. Can you elaborate on this? What happens? Why is this happening?
I think it boils down to the choir's volunteerism. I mean, you can feel that they're all there for a different reason, and the artists feel that. And I don't think we've had an artist come and perform with us wasn't so deeply moved. I mean, we had one of the greatest artists in the world who did the opening ceremonies of the Olympics in 2000. He came and sang with us, and the very first song, he stopped and walked off stage right in the middle of the recording. And I quickly went over to him off stage, and I said, "Are you okay?" And he had tears coming down his face. And he said, "I've never heard a sound like this before." I've never had a feeling like this before. He said, can we add another song? And so, I mean, he was so emotionally driven by the feeling he had from the choir and the orchestra. Again, I think realizing these people all were there because they wanted to be there.
That's exactly it. There's something of the human condition that transfers a certain level of energy or a certain type of energy. We call it consciousness that connects with each other. Our work now collectively has shaped to a world in which we're leveraging our gifts and also teaching the world that art has a bigger place than just consumption. We believe art can connect each other and connect countries, and the externalities are the most important part of the results of this work, which is development, collaboration, and a deeper expression of love amongst each others that's not determined by geopolitical view sets, policy, religion, but it's all embracing, all encompassing. I want to thank all of our speakers, Daniel, Ron, Sam, for your incredible work, and thank you for your time. I hope this inspired you and answered a few questions you might have had about what AI music and soft power have in common. Thank you so much.